It's nearly Christmas, everyone. If I'm a funny guy, I'll put some whimsical noises over this intro to celebrate the good times. I wasn't here last week, but I'm back, and with my biggest video yet, the top 10 of 2023. I'd say 2023 was a solid year for movies, as long as you're not working at Disney, and if you're working at Warner Brothers, well, you may as well just quit. The big studios lost so much money this year, but you know what thrived? The big directors, Scorsese, Nolan, Wes Anderson, even David Fincher. All these boys are taking spots on this list. The film bros won big. So, I think I'm ready to announce my top 10, which is totally not basic at all. Especially my top 3. I definitely haven't seen any of those movies in anyone else's top 3. I'm a very unique person. But before we get into the top 10, I'm going to give some shoutouts to 3 movies that nearly made the list, my honorable mentions. There's Nimona, Netflix's gay animated movie of the year that I reviewed a few months back. That was a lot of fun. Barbie was another that I had fun with, and while people say that it's not as good in retrospect, they always say that. That's the whole reason for the like it until film Twitter tells you it's overrated review. I still think it was funny and deserves a shoutout. Finally, there's May December, a drama that I checked out on Netflix only 2 days before writing as part of the script. The movie deals with childhood trauma in a very smart and personal way, causing some of my biggest stressed exhales of the year. That one just narrowly misses the list. And with that, I'll reveal number 10. Let's get started. Number 10, Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1. This movie is awesome. Mission Impossible is kind of a difficult series to get into because the first 3 movies are the 4th one's only kinda good, but once you get to 5 and 6, that's the shit. You are not immune to the big explosion agenda, and Dead Reckoning continues to deliver in about the same way. The intensity is possibly at an all-time high. I was certain Simon Pegg was going to die during every scene of this movie. The stunts? Ridiculous. Tom Cruise is the most hard-to-hate Scientologist there is because he's just so fucking cool, man. He parachutes off a mountain into the side of a train. Another staple of these movies is great villains, and Gabriel continues that trend too. He's really menacing. Esai Morales may be an actual asshole in real life, but here, at least he's cool. Also, the other villain of this movie is like AI. That's wacky. I love it. A few complaints I have with this movie stem from it sometimes not working that well as a one-part of a two-parter. Like, I understand that the flashbacks in this movie will eventually be explained, but right now, they're just kind of an awkward addition to the plot that barely gets developed. I think including that subplot a little more or a little less could have made it feel a lot less confusing. Also, it just feels kind of funny to develop Ethan Hunt's past in the 7th movie in the series. It's a bit late for that, guys. Overall, I don't think anything in this movie is my favorite in the series. My absolute favorite stunt is not here, or my favorite scene, or my favorite villain, but it all comes together to feel like a fully developed and understood Mission Impossible movie. It feels like now they really know the type of movies they want to make. Number 9, The Holdovers. It's funny, I reviewed this movie only 2 weeks ago, and here it is on the list. I'll be linking that review and many other reviews throughout the video, although I'll admit most of them are quite bad. Anyways, let's discuss The Holdovers briefly. This movie is sweet and tragic, showing how loss and pain can connect a group of people. The group of people here consists of the strict and antisocial teacher, Paul Hunnam, played by Paul Giamatti, a troublemaking yet kind and smart young student named Angus Tully, played by Dominic Sessa, and the grieving guide that is school cook Mary Lamb, played by Divine Joy Randolph. These 3 people are developed extremely well throughout the runtime of the film, and their interactions with one another deepen their characters even more, increasing the audience's investment in their lives and well-being. I found the movie to have a few flaws with characters and pacing towards the start, but once the setting heavily changes, you'll be coasting through beautiful, down-to-earth, heartwarming scenes which lower you into this feeling of happiness and calm despite how depressing many of the events on screen are. Basically, all this is to say that this is a Christmas movie and should be treated as such. I genuinely think it would have been released on Christmas if it wasn't for the aggressive competition at Christmas, which likely would have left this movie with like $2.35 at the box office. I don't really mind that it was released in November though, because it channels Christmas joy hard. 8 out of 10. Wholesome good times. Number 8. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Guardians 3. A Marvel movie in the year of our Lord and Savior 2023? Really? Yes, I'm as pissed as you are. I wish I could be done. I said I was done with Loki, and yeah, I was done watching, but I'm not done talking about this stupid-ass franchise. I was dragged, screaming, across the floor, all the way to the corner where the MCU lies, and the one that did it was Chris fucking Pratt. But if we're being honest, Guardians 3 has everything I want from a modern MCU movie. Actually likable and different characters is a big positive, considering Disney has been relying on the adorable fish out of water protagonist for a lot of new Marvel projects, as well as their own animated films. In this movie, each character is dealing with internal pain. While Rocket's trauma takes up the main plot, Quill isn't left with nothing to do, as his alcoholism and obsession with Gamora are becoming problematic for him. Plus, there's Drax's plot with the children, showing he truly would have been a great father if he got the chance. The Guardians are an ensemble cast, and each one of them has a part to play. Rocket does matter a lot, though, so I can't just not talk about him. I am going to get into spoilers here real quick. Check the timestamps in the description to skip to the next movie. An actual plot about animal abuse and experiments on animals is something I never would have expected to see in a modern superhero movie, but we got it, and it's tragic. The pain of these flashback scenes with his friends that you just know are going to die all culminates in Rocket's escape attempt going wrong and getting them all killed, and even though it's quite predictable, that one scene is so well crafted to be heartbreaking and slightly disturbing that it doesn't matter. And in the present, you see Rocket come to terms with his death as his heart stops, and I realize that even a character that is entirely CGI and played a small part in one of the biggest fan service projects I've ever seen is actually making me emotional. I think we all needed a reminder in May that superhero movies can be good, which just made the rest of them, besides one, look very disappointing in comparison. That's about it for this movie. My two biggest problems are the kind of gross looking colors and the fact that they didn't kill that high evolutionary guy. I really wish he died. Number 7. John Wick 4. So I realize that we've had an action flick and a superhero flick already, but trust me, this is where it really gets good. John Wick is another series that I feel like I need to discuss in full before getting into the specific movie. I watched all three in preparation for 4, and I have to say, I didn't really care for the first John Wick. It wasn't bad, but surprisingly, it's really quite uninteresting to watch a movie where the villains say, "Holy shit, John Wick is going to kill us all without even trying," and then he kills them all without even trying. However, the second movie starts to understand the core of the franchise, and is easily my favorite. These movies are about cool guy John Wick doing ridiculous murders in ridiculous scenarios, plus he needs to get beat up. The most fun thing about these movies is watching John get beat up in cartoonish ways, and John Wick 4 pleased me a lot because it is 100% the most cartoonish movie in the series. I mean, it's technically spoilers, which I'm trying to avoid, but everyone has to know about the scene where John gets kicked down the stairs, falls for like 20 seconds, then gets kicked down more stairs. Then like 5 to 10 minutes after that, a dog pisses on a dead guy's body. Then about 5 to 10 minutes after that, the main character and the main villain have a Western-style showdown. Yet another movie that is entirely about the cool factor. The choreography of some scenes in this one is off the charts, especially the scene filmed from above as John moves through various rooms. It's just awesome. And the creativity with some of the scenes involving Donnie Yen's character is goddamn satisfying. The cool factor may just be at an all-time high with number 4. People criticize Keanu Reeves' acting in this series, which is fair. He's definitely given one of the weakest performances in each installment, but for this type of movie, he's perfect. It doesn't even matter. John Wick is all about cool fights in nightclubs against really creepy villains in like the sickest lighting you have seen in the entire year. Watch this if you want to say hell yeah at something really awesome. Sorry if this is really similar to the Dead Reckoning review. I mean, they both elicit about the same reaction out of me. Number 6. The Killer. So this is a bit of a switch up. We're done with the goofy action movies for now. This is where we're about to have a lot of big director releases in a row, starting with David Fincher's The Killer. I actually only saw this movie on Netflix. I missed the chance to see it in theaters, which is a real shame considering this would probably be a great one to experience that way. The diegetic music and grounded sound design makes it seem like this movie would be great to listen to with headphones, believe it or not. Just hearing a car pass by with the music fading in and out places you right into the world of the character, making it so that those long scenes of him kind of just doing nothing are not unengaging. Oh, wait, shit, I forgot to explain the plot. The Killer is about an unnamed man who's credited as, well, the killer. He's an assassin who has a set of rules to follow in his head, but after a job goes wrong, he is forced to go on the run to avoid his higher-ups. And in doing so, he fucks up over and over due to him constantly being caught off guard while still thinking he's being super methodical and smart. The best example of this is obviously when he tries to fight an assassin called the Brute, and it goes poorly. He also fails to drug the guy's dog correctly, and that becomes a problem as well. Honestly, he probably broke his anticipate, don't improvise rule about 7 times in just that encounter. All of the fight/kill scenes are pretty incredible, mixing development of each character's psyche with intense nail-biting anticipation, with the previously mentioned impressive sound design, and then all that is scored by the Smiths. To me, this movie creates an amazing atmosphere to tell a fairly simple story. Like, nothing in this movie should surprise you too much, everything kinda goes almost exactly how it likely would. Even the twists the movie throws at you end up seeming more reasonable than what you thought would happen in retrospect. The only twist people seem to not like with this movie is the ending and the fate of a certain character, but if I'm being honest, I really liked how that turned out. To put it simply, some people are just dumb as bricks and don't know what they're doing. This is a movie where a lot of smart people make a lot of stupid mistakes, and it's fun as hell to watch it unfold. It's also worth mentioning that it's adapted from a comic. I should probably read that. Number 5. The Boy and the Heron. Miyazaki is officially retiring. This is his last movie, just kidding, he's back. But if this was his last, it would be a damn good send-off. The Boy and the Heron is wacky. It's a very experimental movie by animation standards and by Ghibli standards. The confusing, surrealist world it creates and refuses to explain is possibly not as accessible as ones in other Ghibli projects, but hey, it's performing better than any of their movies ever have in the US, so it seems that audiences don't mind. The world is so captivating and strange that you have to explore it, and when you actually do get a small explanation that helps you fill in the pieces, I promise you will only get a greater appreciation for what you've seen. Mahito Maki is our lead, and his shy, reticent demeanor is relatable and interesting, with the death of his mother a year prior being a significant plot point. The Heron from the title is not the type of character you'd think he is at first glance, and while I wasn't fully sold on him for a bit, once again, the ending ties everything together, and I just love him in retrospect. The two of them together, plus the various fun and engaging side characters we meet, are easily able to carry the story and make even the strangest parts feel grounded, not ridiculous. The themes of acceptance and moving on are blown up to universe-altering stakes, which only makes the final decisions Mahito makes feel more satisfying and sweet. All of this is accompanied by beautiful, unbelievable sound design and wonderful animation, and there's just no way I wouldn't like this movie. Nearing top 5 for Ghibli, easily top 5 for the year, I love it. Number 4, Asteroid City. Here's Wes Anderson, there he is, everyone's favorite guy. Seriously though, Wes is everyone's favorite guy this year. It's actually very similar to the last movie, as Miyazaki has made a mind-boggling, surrealist movie that a general audience seems to be loving, and Wes is over here with a weird story that haters would say doesn't have an ending, and honestly, it seemed like people were eating this up. I mean, I know there's people who hated this one, but all I was seeing was love, 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 and it was great. I loved this movie when I first watched it too, and I had it at number 2 on my list at the time and released one of my unscripted reviews for it that, looking back on it, I kinda hate. I would delete it, but it's got 70-something views. To you, that's pocket change. To me, that's solid gold. My views on this movie are now very different, as I feel that I've taken some time to understand what this film was actually going for, and it's pretty beautiful. Each of the themes connected to this story play into how it isn't a basic or clear story. Audiences always feel the need to understand, but maybe they don't have to, and maybe they should just embrace the feeling. After all, the other big theme gets across that creators don't overanalyze their own works, at least Wes Anderson doesn't. If they're putting their feelings into their work, you should also focus on the feelings that you're getting out of it. The performances in this film are top-notch. I'm going to mention Jason Schwartzman in a later placement too, so here I'll just say that I think he did a fantastic job in both his role in the play and his briefer role in the real-life section. And I think it shows that he doesn't have to be typecast as the weird, funny man that talks a lot, even if he is great at that role. I also really enjoyed Jeffrey Wright. He's got some of my favorite lines in the movie, particularly in that speech at the convention. And of course, as everyone says, Margot Robbie's single scene is fantastic. Being frightened of the unknown is practically a universal trait of people, and this scene gets it across in a very comforting way. And of course, because it's a Wes Anderson movie, it looks amazing. The blue tones in the play sequences, the black and white, the signature pans, I love it. All in all, a breathtaking outing by Wes, and I'm not surprised it made the top 5, but it didn't quite make the top 3. But it better win Best Song. We're all rooting for you, dear alien. Number 3, Killers of the Flower Moon. Killers of the Flower Moon is stunning. This is the movie that truly left me speechless this year. Over time, it could potentially grow into the second place on this list or even the first place. Let's discuss it. This is a film directed by Martin Scorsese, and Marty put his all into this one. It truly feels as if he cared deeply and passionately about the story being told. The story of the Osage people was one that needed to be told correctly, and he knew that, and he followed through. The direction of this movie is unbelievable, down to the final shot. The fact that the man is doing this kind of work at age 81 and not planning to stop shows his dedication and only makes his filmography feel more true to himself and the story he tells. He is just off the charts every time he decides to tackle a true story. The acting in this movie, particularly from the main trio, is just as unbelievable. The fact that Leo DiCaprio is clearly giving the worst performance of the three is not an insult to him, it's a compliment to Lily Gladstone and Robert De Niro, who both channel such an energy of persistence and pure evil, respectively. Leo isn't far behind either. His dim-witted, easily manipulated man-child role is pretty disturbing because you really don't know by the end what he feels bad for. Sure, he was essentially being puppeteered by Hale, but he was willing, and it really just seems like he's sad that bad things are happening to him in return. Each Osage murder further defines the truth that Hale, Ernest, and the others do not see these people as entirely human, and that is why, if an Osage that they were friendly with were to die, they would feel more bad for themselves for losing a friend than anyone else. They're truly a despicable, awful group of people who were never brought to justice in a final and permanent way, so their reputations being completely tarnished by this film is very satisfying. The elephant in the room with killers is the runtime, but if I'm being honest, it didn't bother me in the slightest. The story is not split into subplots or anything like that. It is truly one story for 3 hours and 26 minutes, but each piece of the story is allowed to be developed fully for you to understand and take in each moment. The supporting cast is given time to thrive, as many of them will not survive the full movie, and that allows for some fantastic performances from names like Jesse Plemons, Ty Mitchell, Cara Jade Myers, and Tantu Cardinal. If I were to summarize this movie with one sentence, I would say it's a faithful and worthy explanation of the story of the Osage murders that shows clear respect and dedication to preserving the truth. If you have this film as your top pick, I would not be surprised and I would not disagree at all. But there's still 2 more left to go. Number 2, Oppenheimer. I actually think that this movie has gotten even better for me after about 5 months of sitting with it. The weight, the scale, everything, it's insane. When you're going into a Nolan movie, you can expect a few things, but I think the main thing is that it's going to feel huge, and this movie feels world-ending, and it should, because it could have been. The story of the man who created a bomb that could have destroyed the entire world and was subsequently overcome with guilt and outcasted by the American government is so endlessly interesting. This is another 3-hour film, and this one doesn't just cover a decade or so. No, this covers a whole life, a full-length biopic from about 20 years old to around the end of J. Robert Oppenheimer's life, starring Cillian Murphy, who delivers one of the best performances of the year and should easily win lead actor. The way he is able to convince you that he is this person at 20 years old, despite looking like he's 40, is a testament to how much he fits and creates this character. This is also our second movie in a row to have an unreal supporting cast. Obviously, there's Robert Downey Jr., who I wouldn't be mad to see win Best Supporting Actor for the last hour of this movie, but the names just keep going. Emily Blunt, Matt Damon, Florence Pugh, Rami Malek, Jason Clarke, Tom Conti, Alden Ehrenreich, David Krumholtz, Gary Oldman, and so on, each using their small amount of screen time, because very few people actually have a ton of time, to improve this movie. Not to mention the visuals and sound design, which work in tandem to mold some of the best scenes of the film. Obviously, there's the nuclear test itself, but after that you get the morbid speech scene, which is absolutely unforgettable. Or all of those scenes of Roger Robb's interrogation getting progressively more intense until the sound is nearly drowned out and Oppie's face is blasted with light. It's amazing. The small touches of sickness throughout to make you feel gross even watching are effective, from the often mentioned scene of the target committee choosing not to drop the bomb where one of them vacationed, to more straightforward moments like Oppie watching a young man throw up after giving a speech. The overwhelming nature of nearly every single moment makes it so that every feeling is correctly captured. It works so successfully as a biopic because it puts you right into the movie, right into Oppie's head, as he calculates and makes each decision, whether it be good or bad, so that you can understand him. And by the end, the journey it'll take you on through regret, corruption, greed, and more leaves you in a much different headspace than the one you started in. I also like the JFK cameo. Number 1. Spider-Verse. Across the Spider-Verse. I want to preface this number 1 with a few things. First of all, this is my favorite of the year. Killers and Oppenheimer both would probably edge it out as the best, but this is my favorite. Second, after this movie came out, so did some allegations. The workers on this movie were in horrible conditions with very little break time, and Lord and Miller did nothing to help. So I want to make it clear that I am praising the workers, not Lord and Miller. Despite how gross and awful the production of this movie may have been, I don't think it's fair to leave it off the list when the people who truly put in the time to create this film were the ones who were overworked. All that being said, god damn, I love this movie. Above all, it's a technical marvel. The first movie straight up revolutionized animation, and most animated movies that have been praised for their visuals were kinda just ripping straight from the Spider-Verse style, and somehow, this movie looks even better. The meshing of like 1,000 styles, the creativity with the colors and Gwen's dimension, literally just everything about Hobie. This shit looks insane. Along with that, there is the great sound design. The entire opening sequence would not work nearly as well if it wasn't for those banging drums. Plus, while the soundtrack is underwhelming as an album, each song fits each scene, and Daniel Pemberton's score is so clever and unique. Gwen's theme is a sped-up version of the classic Spider-Man theme. I'm never gonna get over that. The villains of this movie are incredible. Jason Schwartzman's Spot delivers the comedy of the movie. Mr. Schwartzman will never not be funny, but he's also kind of terrifying, and I cannot wait to see his final form in action. And for Miguel O'Hara, I just can't wait to see how his character ends up when this is all over. He's so unpredictable, I love it. The main complaint people seem to have about the movie is the ending, and most of the time it's for stupid-ass reasons. Like, it's part 1. You should not expect the story to end. I was actually really satisfied with how abrupt the ending is. I thought the places Miles and Gwen were left in after their emotional arcs were generally tied up both built a ton of hype for the third movie the second the movie was over. And if the third movie is bad, Phil Lord, I am outside your house. Listen, I have to be honest, this movie makes me feel all good inside. There are some cameos in it that I could do without, like the random Sony Venom connection, but I can't deny the good feeling Spider-Verse gives me. And I still like the first one more. This one's at least a very strong 9, and it's my favorite of the year. Thank you very much. 2023 is nearly over. It's a year that's flown by, and maybe that's because I'm getting older. This is the second year where my interests have been fully defined in my mind, and this is the first full year where I feel like I can tell people, yeah, I want to go to film school and I want to be a film critic. It's been an important discovery for me, and while I'm far from perfect at it, I enjoy it beyond belief. Each of these movies helped me to remember my passion for film, and I appreciate them for doing that. I hope you enjoyed listening to me go over these movies. If you haven't seen one of them, especially one of the top 7, you gotta see it, trust me, man. I am out for now. I really have no clue what I'll be covering next week, but something always tends to come out on Christmas, so I'll rely on that happening despite the strikes fucking up pretty much every release date. If I can't think of anything, I'll see you in 2024 when we return to Invincible. Thank you very much for watching, liking, subscribing, all of which you are mind-controlled to do, and I'll see you. Bye now.